With my Read Aloud series from Indian Economic Development, textbook for class 11. So I'm doing the last chapter, that is Comparative Development Experience of India and its Neighbors. And this is Unit 4, Development Experience of India, a Comparison with Neighbors. So this is Chapter 10, Comparative Development Experience of India and its Neighbors. On the adjoining page it's written, in today's globalized world, where geographical boundaries are slowly becoming meaningless, it is important for neighboring countries in the developing world to understand the development strategies being pursued by their neighbors. This is more so because they share the relatively limited economic space in world markets. In this unit, we will compare India's development experiences with two of its important and strategic neighbors, Pakistan and China. The chapter opens with John F. Kennedy's saying, "Geography has made us neighbors, history has made us friends, economics has made us partners, and necessity has made us allies. Those whom God has so joined together, let no man put asunder." So I start with the introduction. In the preceding units, we studied the developmental experience of India in detail. We also studied the kind of policies India adopted, which had varying impacts in different sectors. Over the last 2 decades or so, the economic transformation that is taking place in different countries across the world, partly because of the process of globalization, has both short as well as long-term implication for each country, including India. Nations have been primarily trying to adopt various means which will strengthen their own domestic economies. To this effect, they are forming regional and global economic groupings such as SAARC. Now, what does SAARC mean? It's an acronym for South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. And for that cooperation, that is, it's made up of Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Then we have the European Union, find out which are the countries. Then ASEAN, ASEAN, that is Association of Southeastern Asian Nations, 10 member states. They are. Again, homework, find out what they are. G8, now I think Russia pulled out of it, so it's G7 now. So it is like JUGFEC, that is J is for Japan, U is for UK, USA, G is for Germany, F is for France, I is for Italy, C is for Canada. G20, then you have what is BRICS. BRICS acronym for 5 leading emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. So, etc. In addition, there is also an increasing eagerness on the parts of various nations to try and understand the developmental processes pursued by their neighboring nations, as it allows them to better comprehend their own strengths and weaknesses vis-a-vis their neighbors. In the unfolding process of globalization, this is particularly considered essential by developing countries as they face competition not only from developed nations but also amongst themselves in the relatively limited economic space enjoyed by the developing world. Besides, an understanding of the other economies in our neighborhood is also required, as all major common economic activities in the region impinge on overall human development in a shared environment. In this chapter, we will compare the developmental strategies pursued by India and the largest two of its neighboring economies, Pakistan and China. It has to be remembered that despite being endowed with vast natural resources, there is little similarity between the political power setup of India, the largest democracy of the world, which is wedded to a secular and deeply liberal constitution for over half a century, and the militarist political power structure of Pakistan or the command economy of China that has only recently started moving towards a democratic system and more liberal economic restructuring, respectively. So, here now we are talking about developmental path, a snapshot view. Do you know that India, Pakistan, China have many similarities in their developmental strategies? All of the three nations have started towards the developmental path at the same time. While India and Pakistan became independent nations in 1947, People's Republic of China was established in 1949. In a speech at that time, Jawaharlal Nehru had said, "These new and revolutionary changes in China and India, even though they differ in content, symbolize the new spirit of Asia and new vitality that is finding expression in the countries in Asia." All the three countries had started planning their development strategies in a similar way, in similar ways. While India announced its first 5 year plan for 1951-56, Pakistan announced its first 5 year plan, now called the Medium Term Development Plan, in 1956. China announced its first 5 year plan in 1953. Now, till 1998, Pakistan had 8 5 year plans, whereas China's 10th 5 year plan period was 2001 to 6. The current planning in India is based on 11th 5 year plan, 2007 to 12. India and Pakistan adopted similar strategies, such as creating a large public sector and raising public expenditure on social development. Till the 1980s, all the three countries had similar growth rates and per capita incomes. Where do they stand today in comparison to one another? Before we answer this question, let us trace the historical path of development policies in China and Pakistan. After studying the last 3 units, we already know what policies India has been adopting since its independence. Let's talk about China now. After the establishment of People's Republic of China under one-party rule, all the critical sectors of the economy, enterprises and lands owned and operated by individuals were brought under government control. The Great Leap Forward (GLF) campaign, initiated in 1958, aimed at industrializing the country on a massive scale. So, GLF is the industrialization policy. People were encouraged to set up industries in their backyards. In rural areas, communes were started. Under the commune system, people collectively cultivated lands. In 1958, there were 26,000 communes covering almost all the farm population. So commune system was for the agrarian reform system in China. Now GLF. What is GLF? Great Leap Forward campaign met with many problems. A severe drought caused havoc in China, killing about 30 million people. When Russia had conflicts with China, it withdrew its professionals who had earlier been sent to China to help in the industrialization process. In 1965, Mao introduced the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution, that is, from 1966 to 76, under which students and professionals were sent to work and learn from the countryside. The present-day fast industrial growth in China can be traced back to the reforms introduced in 1978. China introduced reforms in phases. In the initial phase, reforms were initiated in agriculture, foreign trade, and investment sectors. In agriculture, for instance, commune lands were divided into small plots which were allocated for use, not ownership, to individual households. They were allowed to keep all income from the land after paying stipulated taxes. In the later phase, reforms were initiated in the industrial sector. Private sector firms in general and township and village enterprises, that is, those enterprises which were owned and operated by local collectives in particular, were allowed to produce. And so here I just missed it out. You can read it from here. Were allowed to produce goods. At this stage, enterprises owned by government, known as state-owned enterprises, SOEs, which we in India call public sector enterprises, were made to face competition. The reform process also involved dual pricing. This means fixing the prices in two ways. Farmers and industrial units were required to buy and sell fixed quantities of inputs and output on the basis of prices fixed by the government, and the rest were purchased and sold at market prices. Over the years, as production increased, the proportion of goods or inputs transacted in the market also increased. In order to attract foreign investors, special economic zones, SEZs, were set up. Talking about Pakistan.